The boardroom was suffocating, not from heat or lack of air, but from the weight of what hung unspoken between its walls. Papers lay scattered across the mahogany table like evidence at a crime scene. Outside, the Virginia sun beat down on the Pentagon's limestone walls, but inside this room, darkness pooled in every corner. My father sat 3 chairs down from me, his jaw set in that familiar line of disappointment I'd known since childhood. He wouldn't look at me. Hadn't looked at me in 4 years. The general at the head of the table, a man whose chest bore more ribbons than I'd ever earn, slowly removed his reading glasses. The silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight, ready to snap. Then he turned to me, his eyes carrying something I couldn't name, and spoke one word that would shatter everything my father believed he knew about me. Rear Admiral. How we arrived at this moment, how a story about betrayal and buried truth led to this electric instant when the room seemed to hold its breath. That's what I need to tell you. Because what happened next would rewrite everything we thought we knew about honor, about family, about the price of serving your country when your country can't acknowledge what you've done. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because this story has more twists than you can imagine. And if you like real stories about military honor and family secrets, you need to hear what comes next. Also, drop a comment telling me what state you're watching from and whether you think family loyalty or duty to country matters more. Now let me take you back to where this all began, because understanding that moment in the boardroom requires understanding the boy I was before the Navy made me into something else entirely. Grayson, Montana wasn't much more than a crossroads with a diner and a post office, the kind of place where everyone knew your business before you did. My father, Robert James Mitchell, ran the hardware store on Main Street, but that wasn't what defined him. What defined him was the photograph behind the register, the one showing him in his navy dress whites from 1972, young and proud, before a training accident shattered his knee and his dreams of a naval career in one brutal instant. He never talked about it, but I felt the weight of that lost future in every conversation we had, in every expectation he placed on my shoulders. When I told him at 17 that I wanted to join the Navy, something shifted in his eyes. Not quite pride, not quite relief, but something hungry and unfinished. "You'll do what I couldn't," he said, and I understood that wasn't permission but prophecy, a debt I'd inherited before I could read. My mother, Sarah, a schoolteacher with gentle hands and worried eyes, said nothing, but I caught her watching me at dinner that night with the kind of look you give something beautiful that's about to be lost. She understood. Even then, that men like my father and the institution he worshipped didn't leave room for the boys who entered their machinery. The Naval Academy at Annapolis swallowed me whole. Plebe summer broke something in every midshipman, rebuilt us into interchangeable parts of something larger than ourselves. I was good at it, better than I expected. Navigation came naturally, as did the chain of command, the unquestioning obedience that turned individuals into a single organism. My father visited once during that first year, walked the yard with his hand occasionally touching his right knee, the old injury a ghost he carried everywhere. "You're doing well," he said, which from him was the equivalent of another man's embrace. I graduated 6th in my class, commissioned as an ensign, and my father's handshake at the ceremony lasted 2 seconds longer than necessary. That was his version of love, measured in moments of rigid approval. My first posting was aboard the USS Winston, a guided missile destroyer that cut through the Pacific like a blade. I learned the rhythm of shipboard life, the watches that turned day and night into irrelevant concepts, the constant vibration of the engines that became my heartbeat. I was promoted to lieutenant junior grade, then full lieutenant. My father kept every newspaper clipping, every letter I sent home, arranged in chronological order in a leather binder he showed to customers at the hardware store. "My son, the Navy officer," he'd say, and in those words was everything he'd wanted to be, transferred to me like a genetic obligation. If you're still with me, go ahead and smash that like button because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. Comment below if you've ever felt the weight of a parent's unfulfilled dreams on your shoulders, and make sure you're subscribed because the next part reveals the mission that changed everything. By 2008, I was a lieutenant commander with a decade of service, assigned to naval intelligence at Dam Neck. The work was different, cerebral instead of physical, dealing with threat assessments and classified communications intercepts. My days were spent in rooms without windows, reading reports that couldn't leave the building, connecting dots that formed pictures no one wanted to see. That's where I met Commander Patricia Holloway, a career intelligence officer with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. She ran our unit with quiet efficiency, and she saw something in me I didn't see in myself, some capacity for the kind of work that lived in shadows. "Mitchell," she said one Tuesday in March, "I'm recommending you for something.
Can't tell you what. Can't tell you when.
But if the call comes, you say yes first and ask questions never. Understood?" I understood. 3 months later, the call came. Not from Commander Holloway, but from a captain I'd never met, speaking on a secure line from somewhere he wouldn't name. "Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, you've been selected for a special assignment. You'll receive orders within 48 hours. You will not discuss this assignment with anyone, including family. You will not make any record of it. If asked, you are on routine temporary duty at SPOR in San Diego. Are you willing to accept?"
My mouth was dry.
"Yes, sir." The line went dead. The orders arrived via courier in a sealed envelope marked with classification levels I'd only seen twice before. I was to report to a commercial office building in Arlington, not the Pentagon, not any military installation. The address looked like it belonged to a consulting firm. I told my father I was headed to San Diego for a technical training course, routine stuff, nothing exciting. He grunted approval. "Good. Keep your skills sharp." I didn't tell him I had no idea where I was actually going or what I'd be doing. The Arlington building was exactly as nondescript as it appeared, gray and forgettable. The elevator required a key card and descended 2 floors below ground level. The room I entered held 6 other officers, none wearing uniforms, none using real names. We would spend the next 3 weeks learning a mission that officially didn't exist, preparing for an operation that would never appear in any record, becoming ghosts in our own military. The mission, I eventually understood, involved intercepting a weapons shipment originating from a country we publicly called an ally. The weapons, advanced electronics with dual-use capabilities, were destined for a terrorist network that had already killed hundreds. The official channels couldn't touch it without creating an international incident. So we would touch it unofficially, intercept the shipment in international waters, make it disappear, and ensure no one could ever connect the dots back to the United States Navy. It was illegal by some interpretations, necessary by others, and entirely classified by all of them. Hit that subscribe button if you want to know what happened on that mission, because I promise you the truth is stranger than anything you've imagined. Drop a comment telling me if you think classified operations are justified when lives are at stake, and keep watching because the next part explains why my father spent 4 years believing I'd betrayed everything he taught me. We deployed in August aboard a retrofitted fishing trawler flying a Liberian flag, our military identities buried under civilian covers, so thin they felt like tissue paper. The crew consisted of the 7 of us plus a team of civilians from an agency that pretended not to be CIA. Our target vessel was a cargo ship called the Meridian Star, registered in Panama, carrying legitimate electronics equipment and, in a hidden compartment we'd identified through signals intelligence, the weapons package we needed to intercept. The plan was surgical. Board under the cover of a mechanical emergency, locate and remove the hidden compartment's contents, depart before anyone understood what had happened. Clean, simple, deniable. But no plan survives contact with reality intact. We made the intercept 200 miles off the coast of Yemen, in waters where 3 different nations' jurisdictions overlapped into a legal gray zone. The boarding went smoothly at first. Our cover story held. But one of the Meridian Star's crew, a Serbian engineer named Dragomir, had better operational security awareness than we'd anticipated. He saw something, noticed something, triggered some internal alarm I didn't catch until too late. Suddenly we had a hostage situation, armed crew members, and a mission that was seconds from turning into an international incident that would make headlines worldwide and expose an operation the United States could never acknowledge. I was the ranking military officer on scene. The decision was mine. I could abort, report back, follow protocol, and let the weapons continue to their destination where they would kill people, maybe Americans, maybe hundreds. Or I could make a call that existed outside any protocol, a decision that would either save lives or end my career, depending on whether anyone ever found out. I gave the order to continue. We neutralized the armed crew members, non-lethally, but barely. We extracted the weapons package. We departed the Meridian Star with our cover story intact but fragile. And I filed a report through channels that didn't officially exist to handlers who didn't officially employ me. The mission was a success. The weapons never reached their destination. An attack planned for 3 months later never materialized. Intelligence analysts estimated we'd prevented somewhere between 40 and 300 casualties. But none of that could ever be acknowledged, recorded, or rewarded because the mission itself was a classified action that officially never occurred. I returned to Dam Neck 2 weeks later, submitted to a debriefing that took 6 hours, and resumed my normal duties as if I'd spent the time in San Diego learning about communication systems. I wrote my father a letter describing the training I'd supposedly received, technical details I invented wholesale. He wrote back, "Sounds valuable. We're proud of you." But someone talked. Not one of us, not anyone on the operation, but someone in the intelligence chain, someone who maybe disagreed with the mission's authorization or had their own political agenda. Whispers started circulating through the Navy's informal networks. A lieutenant commander had gone cowboy during a classified op. Someone had exceeded their authority. There was talk of charges, investigations, examples to be made. Make sure you're subscribed because what happens next is when everything fell apart, and if you think you know where this is going, trust me, you don't. Drop a like if you're invested in finding out what happened, and comment below whether you'd have made the same choice I did in those waters off Yemen. The official inquiry started 4 months later, conducted behind closed doors at the Pentagon by officers whose names I was never told. I couldn't defend myself because I couldn't discuss the mission. The details were classified above my clearance level to disclose. I sat in a windowless room answering questions with "I cannot confirm or deny" over and over like a broken record while my career dissolved around me. The narrative that emerged, the one that leaked into unofficial channels, was that I'd abandoned a posting, gone AWOL, and engaged in unauthorized military action that jeopardized national security. None of it was true, but all of it was impossible to refute without revealing classified operations. My father heard the rumors. Montana might be 1,000 miles from Washington, but the Navy community is small and gossip travels faster than official communications. Someone from his old unit called him, told him his son was under investigation, that I'd walked away from my duty, that I disgraced the uniform. My father, the man who'd built his entire identity around the Navy career he never had, who'd transferred all those dreams to me, heard that his son had betrayed everything he believed in. He called me once. The conversation lasted 90 seconds. "Did you walk away?" he asked. I couldn't answer. The classification was absolute. "I did my duty, sir," I said. "That's not what I asked. Did you walk away from your posting?" Silence stretched between us like a canyon. "I can't discuss the details of my service, Dad. I'm sorry." He hung up. That was the last time we spoke for 4 years. The investigation concluded with what the Navy calls adverse administrative action, a punishment that exists in record systems but never gets explained publicly. I was transferred to a desk job at Naval Station Norfolk. My security clearances suspended, my career trajectory terminated. I wasn't discharged, wasn't court-martialed, but I was finished and everyone knew it. I'd become an example, a cautionary tale whispered to junior officers. This is what happens when you think you know better than the chain of command. My father stopped answering my letters. My mother called occasionally, her voice tight with confusion and hurt, asking questions I couldn't answer. "Just tell me you didn't do what they're saying," she begged. "I can't, Mom.
I'm sorry.
But I did what was right,"
She cried.
I heard my father in the background, his voice hard. "Hang up. He's not our son anymore." The line went dead. I lived in a studio apartment in Virginia Beach, drove to Norfolk every day, processed paperwork for operations I'd never be part of again, and watched the ocean from my window at night wondering if serving your country was supposed to feel like this, hollow and bitter and pointless. Commander Holloway, the woman who'd recommended me for the mission that destroyed my career, retired 6 months later. She found my address somehow, sent a handwritten note. You did the right thing. History will remember, even if records won't. Stay strong. It was cold comfort when your own father believed you were a disgrace. If you're still watching, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to reveal something that changes everything. And like this video, if you've ever been misunderstood by someone whose opinion mattered more than anything, comment below what you think really happened on that ship. 3 years passed like a slow-motion funeral for the career I'd built and the family relationships I'd lost. I got promoted to commander on pure time and service, a bureaucratic inevitability that meant nothing. I dated occasionally, half-hearted attempts that fizzled because I couldn't explain the weight I carried, the gap between who I appeared to be and what I'd actually done. I considered resigning my commission, leaving the Navy entirely, starting over somewhere far from water and uniforms and the constant reminder of what classified service had cost me. Then, in November 2012, something shifted. I received a notice to report to the Pentagon, office number redacted, purpose unspecified. The summons came through official channels but felt irregular, like someone had reached into the system and pulled me back into a world I'd been exiled from. I arrived on a Tuesday morning, wore my service dress blues, prepared for nothing because anything could happen. The office I was directed to was on the 4th floor E-Ring, the Pentagon's outer corridor, where the most senior leadership worked. A yeoman checked my ID twice, made a phone call, then escorted me down a hallway to a door marked only with a number. Inside, I found a conference room I didn't recognize. And my father. He sat at the far end of the table, looking older than I remembered, his hair gone completely gray.
He didn't stand when I entered. Didn't speak.
Just stared at me with an expression I couldn't read, something between anger and confusion and fear. Around the table sat several officers I didn't know, a Navy captain, 2 commanders, and at the head, a Rear Admiral whose face I recognized from official portraits but had never met, Rear Admiral Thomas Brennan, Director of Naval Intelligence. The Admiral gestured to a chair. Sit down, Commander Mitchell. I sat. My father's eyes tracked me the entire way, and I realized with a shock that he was crying, silent tears running down his face, while his jaw remained set in that familiar rigid line. Admiral Brennan opened a folder, the kind with red-striped borders indicating classified contents. Commander Mitchell, you're here because certain information has been declassified, and certain facts need to be established for the record. Your father is here because he deserves to hear this directly from the Navy, not through rumors or partial truths.
My heart was hammering.
My father's hands were flat on the table, white-knuckled. The Admiral continued. In August 2008, you were selected for a classified operation, code-named Distant Thunder, involving the interdiction of weapons destined for terrorist networks. You performed your duties in accordance with your orders and within the scope of your authorization. During the operation, you made tactical decisions under extreme circumstances that prevented weapons from reaching their intended destination and, according to intelligence assessments, prevented a major terrorist attack that would have resulted in significant loss of life. He paused, looking at my father. You did not abandon your post. You did not go AWOL. You did not act outside your authority. You followed orders that, due to their sensitive nature, could not be acknowledged or defended at the time. The subsequent investigation and adverse actions taken against you were necessary for operational security, but resulted in significant injustice to your career and reputation. Drop a like right now if you felt that moment, if you understand what it means to finally hear the truth spoken out loud after years of silence. Subscribe if you want to hear how this ends, and comment whether you think the military was right to sacrifice one officer's reputation to protect classified operations. My father's face had gone pale. He was looking at the Admiral like a man who'd just been told the ground beneath him wasn't solid, had never been solid. You're saying, my father's voice came out rough, you're saying he was following orders? That he didn't walk away? Admiral Brennan met his eyes. Your son is one of the most dedicated officers I've had the privilege to read about. He sacrificed his career, his family relationships, and his reputation to protect an operation that saved lives. He couldn't defend himself because the mission was classified at levels that prevented disclosure even to protect his own interests. He spent 4 years under a cloud of suspicion and judgment, much of it from the people who should have trusted him most, because we asked him to carry that burden in silence. The room had gone completely quiet, that electric hush that comes when something fundamental shifts. My father was staring at me now, really seeing me for the first time in 4 years, and the expression on his face was breaking my heart. Shame, regret, pride, grief, all tangled together in a way that aged him another 10 years right there at the table. "Michael," he said, my name barely a whisper. "I didn't know. They told me you'd abandoned your duty. I believed them. I believed you'd thrown away everything I'd taught you." I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, everything I'd held back for 4 years would come pouring out, and I wasn't sure I'd survive it. Admiral Brennan wasn't finished. Commander Mitchell's actions during Operation Distant Thunder were exemplary. His tactical judgment prevented an international incident while successfully completing the mission objective. He displayed exactly the kind of initiative, discretion, and moral courage we need in our intelligence operations. However, due to the classified nature of the operation and the political sensitivities involved, we were unable to publicly acknowledge his service at the time. He paused, pulled another document from the folder. That situation has changed. The operation has been partially declassified. The threat it addressed is now historical record, and certain recognitions that were delayed can now be made official. The other officers at the table shifted, a coordinated movement that felt rehearsed. The captain stood, holding a wooden box. Admiral Brennan stood as well. "Commander Michael James Mitchell, it is my honor to present you with the Defense Superior Service Medal for exceptionally meritorious service while assigned to classified duties of vital importance to the national security of the United States. Your actions directly prevented a terrorist attack and saved an estimated 200 lives." The captain opened the box, revealing the medal, its red, white, and blue ribbon bright against the velvet lining. I stood because protocol demanded it, but my legs felt hollow. My father was standing too, his chair scraping back, his hands trembling. But Admiral Brennan still wasn't done. He held up one more document, this one official stationery with Department of the Navy letterhead. "Additionally, Commander Mitchell, due to the exemplary nature of your service and the significant contributions you've made to naval intelligence operations, contributions that cannot be fully detailed here, and in recognition of the personal and professional sacrifices you've made in service to your country, the Secretary of the Navy has approved your promotion to captain, effective immediately." The room tilted.
Captain.
2 ranks up from where I'd been frozen. My father made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Admiral Brennan wasn't finished. "And," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone delivering a message that had been years in the making, "the Navy Personnel Board has selected you for flag rank. Pending final approval and completion of required training, you will be promoted to Rear Admiral, lower half, making you one of the youngest officers to achieve flag rank in naval intelligence history." The silence that followed was absolute. Electric. The kind of quiet that hums with everything that cannot be said out loud. My father was staring at me with tears running freely down his face now. All his rigid military bearing collapsed under the weight of understanding what he'd done, what he'd believed, how wrong he'd been. If you made it this far, hit that subscribe button because you need to hear what happens next, and drop a like if this story gave you chills. Comment below what you would say to your father in this moment, and keep watching because we're not done yet. Admiral Brennan turned to my father directly. "Mr. Mitchell, your son has served with distinction in circumstances most officers will never face. He carried the burden of classified service with honor, even when that honor cost him his family. The Navy owes him a debt. You owe him one too." It wasn't said cruelly, but it landed like a physical blow. My father flinched, nodded, couldn't seem to find words. The Admiral looked at me. "The promotion ceremony will be scheduled for next month. Your family is invited, obviously. For today, I wanted you to hear this directly, and I wanted your father to understand what his son has sacrificed for this country." He extended his hand. I shook it, muscle memory, while my brain tried to process what had just happened. The other officers filed out, the captain leaving the metal box on the table. And then it was just me, my father, and the wreckage of 4 years of misunderstanding. He stood there, this man who'd raised me on concepts of duty and honor, who'd transferred his broken dreams to my shoulders, who'd believed the worst of me when rumors replaced truth. "Michael," he started, then stopped, his voice breaking. "Dad," I said, and that single word opened something that had been locked away. He crossed the space between us, pulled me into an embrace that felt like drowning and breathing at the same time, and said into my shoulder, "I'm sorry. God help me, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. I should have known you'd never walk away." I held my father while he cried, this man who'd never shown weakness in my entire childhood, and felt 4 years of isolation crack open. "You couldn't have known," I said. "It was classified. I couldn't tell you." "But I should have trusted you anyway," he said, pulling back to look at me, his hands on my shoulders. "That's what fathers are supposed to do. Trust their sons. Believe in them even when everything says not to." "I failed you. I let the Navy's rumors matter more than what I knew about the boy I raised." We stood there in that Pentagon conference room, the Virginia sun slanting through the windows, and tried to rebuild something that had been broken, maybe beyond repair. "I kept all your letters," he said finally. "Every one you sent, even though I didn't answer. Your mother made me keep them. She said you'd done something important, something you couldn't talk about, and we needed to have faith." He smiled weakly. "She was right. She's always right." "Is she here?" I asked. "In Washington?" He shook his head. "Home. But she knows about today. They called me 3 days ago, told me to be here, told me I needed to hear something important about my son. I almost didn't come. I was afraid it would be bad news, a court-martial, something worse. But she made me come. Said I owed you that much." "You should call her," I said. "Tell her what happened." He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, dialed, put it on speaker. My mother answered on the second ring. "Robert? What happened? Is he okay?" "Sarah," my father's voice was thick, "our son is a hero. He's being promoted to Rear Admiral. And I've been a damn fool." Subscribe right now if you believe in second chances and the power of truth, and hit that like button if this story moved you. Comment below about a time when you had to wait for the truth to come out, and stay with me because I'm about to tell you what I learned from all of this. My mother's cry of joy came through the phone, pure and clear, and I heard her saying my name over and over like a prayer. "I knew it," she said. "I told you, Robert. I told you our Michael wouldn't walk away from duty. I told you there was more to the story." "You did," my father said. "You were right and I was wrong, and I don't know how to fix what I broke." "You start by believing him now," she said simply. "You start by being there from here on out."
"Can you do that?"
He looked at me, this man who'd carried the weight of his own unfulfilled dreams for so long he'd forgotten how to dream for someone else. "Yes," he said. "I can do that." We talked for another 10 minutes, my mother asking questions my father couldn't quite answer, both of them trying to understand what had happened to their son in the 4 years of silence. Finally, my father hung up, pocketed his phone, and looked at me with something approaching his old intensity. "Tell me what you can," he said.
"Please."
"I need to understand what you went through." So I told him what I was allowed to tell him, the broad strokes of the mission, the decision I'd made in international waters, the weight of carrying classified secrets that prevented me from defending my own reputation. I told him about the studio apartment in Virginia Beach, the 3 years of desk work, the nights wondering if serving your country was supposed to feel like punishment. I told him about losing him, about losing family, about how that hurt worse than any professional consequences. He listened without interrupting, his face grave, and when I finished he was quiet for a long moment. "I taught you that honor matters most," he said finally. "That duty comes before personal comfort. That service requires sacrifice. And then when you lived those lessons, when you made those sacrifices, I punished you for it because I didn't understand what you were sacrificing for. That's on me." That's my failure, not yours. You didn't have the full picture, I said. None of us did. The system is designed that way, compartmentalized, need to know. It protected the mission, but it destroyed individuals in the process. I knew that going in. I accepted it. But you shouldn't have had to accept losing your family, he said. That wasn't part of the deal. That was my choice, my mistake. And I'm going to spend whatever time I have left making it right. We left the Pentagon together, walked out into the November afternoon, and for the first time in 4 years I felt like maybe the weight I'd been carrying could be shared. We got coffee at a shop near the metro, talked about small things, Montana news, the hardware store, my mother's new garden. We didn't talk about the Navy or the promotion or any of the big things that hovered over us like thunderclouds. We talked like a father and son who'd forgotten how to talk to each other and were relearning the language. When it was time to part, him to catch a flight back to Montana, me to drive back to Norfolk, he hugged me again. I'm proud of you, he said. I should have said that 4 years ago, should have said it every day, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of the officer you've become and the man you've been even when I couldn't see it. Make sure you've subscribed because I'm about to tell you what this all means, and hit that like button if you understand what it costs to serve your country in the shadows. Comment below what honor means to you, and let me tell you what I learned from those 4 years of silence. The promotion ceremony happened 6 weeks later in Annapolis, on the same yard where I'd graduated 15 years earlier. My mother and father sat in the front row. My father in a suit that looked new, my mother in a blue dress that matched the December sky. Commander Holloway came out of retirement to attend. Several officers from Operation Distant Thunder were there, most of them having gotten out of the Navy by then, living civilian lives, but they came back for this. Admiral Brennan presided, and when he spoke about my service, he was careful with his words, dancing around classified details while making it clear that what I'd done mattered. My father watched the entire ceremony with tears on his face, not ashamed of them, just letting them fall. When it was over, when I wore the stars of a Rear Admiral on my shoulders, he shook my hand formally, then pulled me close and whispered, "Your grandfather would have been proud. I am proud. Thank you for being stronger than your old man." The reception afterward was small, intimate, just family and close friends. My mother held my hand and wouldn't let go, as if afraid I might disappear again if she loosened her grip. "You've always been my hero," she said. "Even when I didn't understand what you were doing, I knew you were doing something important. A mother knows." I wanted to tell her about the lonely years, the nights wondering if I'd made the right choice, the cost of classified service that nobody prepared you for. But she already knew. I could see it in her eyes, the understanding that some truths don't need words. Over the following months, I rebuilt my career from a new position, with new responsibilities, and a clearance that finally matched what I'd been doing all along. I was assigned to the Office of Naval Intelligence Headquarters, working on programs I still can't discuss, making decisions that will never appear in public record. My father and I talked every week, sometimes about Navy stuff, mostly about life. He started telling me stories about his own brief service, things he'd never shared before, the dreams he'd had, and the ways they'd died, and how he'd tried to resurrect them through me. "That was unfair," he admitted once. "Putting my failures on you, expecting you to live the life I couldn't. You deserved better than that." "You gave me values," I said. "Honor, duty, service. Those weren't failures. Those were gifts. I just had to learn to carry them my own way." He was quiet for a moment. "Did you ever regret it? That mission, the choice you made, what it cost you?" I thought about it honestly. "No," I said. "I'd do it again. Maybe I'd find a way to help my family understand better. Maybe I'd push harder for the truth to come out sooner. But the mission itself, the decision I made, no." I didn't walk away. I stepped forward. "There's a difference." "There is," he agreed. "And I should have known which one you do." Hit that subscribe button one more time if this story meant something to you. Drop a like if you made it all the way to the end, and comment below what you think true honor looks like when nobody's watching. Because that's what I learned from all of this, the lesson that took 4 years of silence to understand. Honor isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when they can't watch, when they won't understand, when they might even hate you for it. Honor is making the hard choice, knowing you might never get credit, might never be able to defend yourself, might lose everything that matters while protecting something bigger than yourself. My father taught me that honor mattered most. The Navy taught me what that actually meant. And those 4 years of silence taught me that sometimes the highest form of service is serving in a way that no one will ever acknowledge, carrying secrets that isolate you from the people you love most, standing in the gap between what's legal and what's right, and making the call anyway, because someone has to. Was it worth it? The lives saved, the attack prevented, yes. The cost to my family, the years of estrangement, that's harder to calculate. But I think maybe the real worth was in what came after, in my father finally understanding that the values he'd taught me had taken root deeper than he'd imagined, in the chance to rebuild something broken, in learning that truth eventually surfaces even when systems are designed to bury it. The general turned to me that day in the Pentagon conference room and said, "Rear Admiral," and in those 2 words was vindication, recognition, justice delayed but not denied. But the real moment wasn't the promotion or the ceremony, or the stars on my shoulders. The real moment was my father's tears, his apology, his understanding that sometimes the hardest duty is trusting someone you love when everything tells you not to. That's what I want you to take from this story. Not the military details or the classified operations, or the drama of silence and revelation. Take this. Believe in the people you love even when you don't understand what they're doing. Trust that someone raised with values will hold to those values even in circumstances you can't imagine. And understand that serving your country, really serving it, sometimes means serving in ways that look like failure until the truth emerges. My career continued. I served another 8 years, made Rear Admiral upper half, then Vice Admiral before I retired. My father lived long enough to see all of it, to attend every ceremony, to tell anyone who'd listen about his son, the Admiral. The hardware store in Grayson, Montana still has that photograph behind the register. My father in his dress whites from 1972, but next to it now is a picture of me in my Vice Admiral's uniform, both of us serving the Navy we loved, both of us learning what honor costs. He died 3 years ago, peacefully, with my mother holding one hand and me holding the other. His last words to me were, "You did what I couldn't. You finished what I started. I'm proud of you, son." And I understood finally that we'd both been carrying each other's dreams, both trying to live up to expectations that were maybe impossible, both learning that honor isn't about perfection but about stepping forward when stepping forward costs you everything. The silence swept the room that day in the Pentagon. Electric, heavy, full of things that couldn't be said and truths that had waited too long to emerge. And in that silence, a general spoke 2 words that changed everything: Rear Admiral. But the silence itself, that moment when everything hung suspended, that was the real gift. Because in that silence was space for understanding, for forgiveness, for truth to finally breathe after years of suffocation. So here's my question for you, the one I want you to answer in the comments. What would you have done? If you'd been in international waters with weapons destined for terrorists and a choice between following protocol or saving lives, what would you have chosen? And if you'd been my father, hearing rumors about your son, would you have believed the Navy or believed your child? Drop your answers below. Subscribe if stories like this matter to you. Hit that like button if you believe truth eventually wins. And remember that sometimes the highest form of honor is serving in silence, trusting that someday, somehow, the truth will emerge and the people who matter will understand what you sacrificed and why. Thank you for staying with me through this whole story. Thank you for listening. And if you've ever served in silence, carried secrets that isolated you, made choices no one could understand, know this: your service matters, your sacrifice counts, and someday the silence will break and someone will turn to you and speak the words you've been waiting to hear.
Stay strong.
Stay honorable. And keep serving, even when no one's watching, because that's when it matters most.